ora haere mai, welcome to the channel, and today I've got an interview with Murray CAMMICK.
Yep, that's
said
perfect.
That right?
Yes, yes.
So some of you may have heard of Murray. He's quite, well, I'd call him a legend in the New Zealand music scene, mostly known for his writing. He was the former editor and writer with Rip It Up, a one-man band at one stage, and various other magazines. He also did a lot of photography, as I understand, for the magazine, and he still does photography to this day. And he's also a DJ and has got his own show on, what is it, BFM?
BFM, yeah, Auckland. It's you can listen to the podcast via the BFM website.
Yeah, and it's called Land of
the Good Groove, a Nile Rodgers song title.
Land of the Good Groove. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to hand you over to Murray. You can tell us a bit about how you got into music, Murray, and a bit about your, if you like, chronological journey to where you are now, or whatever you think might be interesting aspects. So I'll leave you there.
Yeah. I'll need some questions from you, but
Okay.
I did get into music just through being at school. A group of us, we were all into music right from primary school, because I went through one of those primary schools that had a Form 11 and 12. I don't know what you call them now. Usually the age group covered by
they all go by
intermediate
years.
school.
Yeah.
But we were all into music, and a friend from primary school, Alistair Dougal, he and I...
the bass player, right?
Yeah, the bass player,
I know
yeah.
who you mean.
Alistair and I were just into a variety of music, but I would tend to buy the soul music and Otis Redding and stuff, and he would often buy the rock things of the day, whether it be Cream's album with Badge on it, or Chicago's Question 66 and 67.
Right, yeah.
The
Chicago
song.
Transit Authority.
Yeah, when they were called that. And I think he might have bought the Blind Faith album. So we were listening to a variety of stuff, but I just became the soul music obsessive. And
Right.
we decided to, we couldn't get the albums that we wanted in New Zealand, so we started importing them from the UK, and
Wow.
things like the Jethro Tull album that was possibly called Stand Up. It actually stood up in the middle if you bought it in the UK.
How did you do that back then? Because everything's online now, but...
Yeah, well, we at the time, he used to subscribe to Disc Music Echo, and I subscribed to Record Mirror, which was, they were both...
Record Mirror.
Yeah, they were both magazines that were what they call the Inkies, or they came out weekly, but Melody Maker was for musicians, and New Musical Express was a little bit more sophisticated than what we were buying at primary school.
Yeah.
And they just had an ad for this place called Patworth of Nottingham, and we would go down and buy pound notes or postal notes. You were allowed to buy something like 2 or 4 pounds per
notes.
day.
I remember now. Yes.
So we would go and collect them. We'd walk the dog.
You're only allowed so many per day.
Yeah. Every day we'd take a walk down to the
why was that? Why do I
post
really
office.
restricted
Well,
that?
it was the control of overseas funds. But Alistair and I, a few years later after uni, we started a Rip It Up magazine in 1977. He was the editor, and I was more the hustler. Took the photos.
Alistair was the original editor?
Yeah, he's the first editor.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and then he decided to go do a law degree, so he got a bit busy, and it ended up back with me, the editing. And I'd been going to be a school teacher but couldn't get a job, did a bit of part-time teaching, and I was hopeless by that stage at teaching.
Was that like primary level, high school? Or?
High school, but at the time I'd pursued the idea of being a school teacher. I was more gregarious, whereas I became a bit more of reclusive, or I preferred a job where I was just focusing on something like editing or
right, as opposed to dealing with having lots of people.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And what when you say you became pretty much a soul person, was there a bit of music you heard somewhere that was the turning point where you just fell in love with soul, or can you remember?
It was, you know, as kids we'd listen to the commercial radio, and the Four Tops had 2 hits, and we'd just been buying singles up to then, myself anyway, and they had Reach Out, I'll Be There, and Standing in the Shadows of Love off this one album called Reach Out. And the idea with soul albums is you're meant to have one hit and fillers, and that particular album had about 6 hits on it, which is not the idea as far as the record company is concerned, but Holland Dossier Holland's writing was so good. And then then I went on to Otis Redding, and I was captivated by the rawness of the Stax Vault Review live in London, which got released in New Zealand. So I became an Otis Redding obsessive, and weirdly enough, it feels like it was years, but I only really got into Otis Redding early 67, and he died in the plane crash in December 67.
Wow.
But weirdly, those 6 months seem like years. Like I've mentioned it to Alistair, and he said, surely we were into Redding long years before he died. But no, we were only into him 6 months before he died.
Yeah.
So that's where I got into soul music, and I just became a bit of a sort of specialist. But I think my great love is bass heavy in the mix, you know.
Bass heavy, but in the terms of real bass, as in older soul music, which had real bass on it.
Or even when you look at the commercial tracks coming out of LA, what was the team that made all those hits?
The Wrecking Crew?
Yeah, the Wrecking Crew. They had bass pretty heavy in the mix.
Yeah. And the Motown stuff.
Of course, Motown too.
Yeah,
and that's what I became obsessed with. At one point, I thought I had some sophisticated ability to judge good music from poor quality music, but ultimately I just tend to reflect on whether the bass is heavy in the mix, and if the bass is heavy in the mix, I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. As long as it's heavy and clean, you can hear it, and it's not too fuzzy and distorted, you know.
There are strange situations like with the Wrecking Crew where Carol, the bass player?
Carol Kay.
Yeah, Carol Kay.
Yeah.
Her bass almost sounds like a guitar being played, but I still like that, you know.
Yeah, I think she's one of those people that started on guitar. I could be wrong on that.
Oh, definitely. She was a jazz guitarist.
Yeah, yeah.
And then she got fed up with having to take about 5 guitars to every session.
Yeah.
And she switched to bass at some point, I guess because they needed a bass player. And then she thought, if I'm on bass, I just take one instrument in the car every morning. So.
Yeah, and probably like as always, as it was back then and is now, often there's a shortage of bass players. There's always heaps of guitarists, which is often the case, right?
Yeah, well, guitarists, I guess sessions often employ 2 guitarists, and sometimes they might even employ 3. So I guess there's more work for guitarists, but I mean, every session will need a bass player.
Yeah, yeah. So you're not so keen on like modern soul or when it's like using a sequenced bass, or
I don't mind sequenced bass.
Oh, you don't mind?
No, and often some of the first, you know, I was a very early big fan of Luther Vandross, where Marcus Miller was, I think, using sequence, but he was also using his own instrument too, I think. I've always thought that both sounds are there at the same time.
Yeah, there was a bit of that around that time, a lot of doubling up with that.
That's my perception, but, you know, like at the time, Never Too Much came out. I thought that was sort of God, and then I think Luther just went further and further downhill in terms of his recordings.
Yeah.
So I sort of lost interest in him.
Yeah. Yeah, he was always about. I love his voice, and I love when he does backing stuff on other people's albums. But I just found, for me, his music a bit, I don't know, romancy.
Yeah,
soft.
Well, the word is probably saccharine. I mean, he just got too sweet.
Yeah,
and, He and basically the early up-tempo stuff that was popular on dance floors, and that became not a priority for him, and he was interested in his, ballads and stuff.
Yeah.
He became a big bore for me.
Yeah, I've got this George Duke album. Are you familiar with him? He's a jazz funk guy, right?
Yeah, he's a guy who
played with Frank Zappa and
yeah, he generally produces lame albums, is my perception.
He can do. He went through a kind of disco commercial stage, but prior to that, a lot of his stuff was jazz or jazz fusion in the time when jazz fusion was kind of raw and more exciting.
Yeah,
but what I'm getting to is Luther Vandross on an album called Illusions does a lot of the backing vocals on it, and his singing on that is incredible.
I'm sure it would be.
Is.
I don't like vocalese that much with jazz, but I just think that quite a few people I know really like George Duke, but I've been and seen Jeffrey Osborne and thought, why has this guy got only one good song? And then I realised he's produced by George Duke. That's why he's only got one good song.
Yeah, well, I mean, George Duke, as far as like soul people goes, it's not really his forte. He is more well known in the jazz and jazz fusion scene or jazz funk scene.
Jeffrey Osborne came out of the band LTD,
right?
And the only two highlights in his show are the two LTD tracks, "Back in Love Again,"
okay.
And I'm not sure what the other track might be. It might be "We Came to Party."
Right.
Yeah, but once the show goes completely flat for about an hour while he does George Duke stuff.
So anyway, Murray, moving on a little bit. So you're at school and you met Alistair, and and you're inspired by some of that early soul stuff, which got you hooked. How did you ever play an instrument? That was
no. Well, like at high school or primary even, I tried to play guitar and I just was no good. And well, certainly, I just didn't understand it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I had no concept of feel of. I think I actually tried to learn when I was too young. It was definitely primary.
Arguably, some people say it's the best time to learn because you haven't got so much other stuff in your brain.
Yeah, but you'd have to.
You mean the whole comprehension of it, technically?
Yeah, I didn't. I just had no feel at all.
Yeah. What about singing?
I don't think I can sing.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so you became a music lover and obsessed with soul. So you left school. Did you go to uni or?
Oh, yeah. Me and Alistair were at university.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Because you became a teacher, right?
Yeah. Well, he did an English degree while I did fine arts.
Yeah.
Which is when I became obsessed with taking photographs. I got into photography at art school, and I took photos for Crackham, the student newspaper.
Yeah.
And then I think on our final year, when I was actually the designer for Crackham, Alistair was the editor or a writer in the. Now he's a writer in the music section of Crackham. So.
Is Crackham still going?
Oh shit! Yeah.
Wow, the same name. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Because the Wellington one's Salient, isn't it?
Salient must be still going too.
I think it is. Yeah. That's fantastic that they're both still going. If you think about it. So from that, you guys, and whose idea was it to start the magazine? Rip It Up.
Well, I think it was just a bit of a mutual idea.
Yeah.
The magazine that collapsed the year before was called Hot Licks.
Which I remember that. I got Hot Licks.
Yeah, well,
that was a precursor, if you like.
Yeah, and it was free for years, and then they put it on the newsstands, and it had a really good reputation, and it didn't stop because it was on the newsstands. It stopped because the company that owned it went bust. The company that owned it was the Direction Records Group, and they went bust.
So you were involved with Hot Licks?
No, but I had friends who were a friend of mine was the final editor, Jeremy Templar, but no, I wasn't.
What Hot Licks were doing, did that kind of inspire you a little bit for your concept of Rip It Up, perhaps?
Oh yes, yeah, but there was something weird in that they had become quite a sophisticated magazine, and when Rip It Up started up, we didn't have much money, so we were quite bare bones in the sense of
raw, yeah.
we were quite raw and only 16 pages I think, and we had so much to say. The photos were tiny.
Yeah.
I mean, the first issue was about the only time we ever had a good photo spread, when I did the Commodores. And then we just started running out of space, for photos, because we had to cram in the ads to pay the bills, and it was a bit of a mess.
And were you both doing writing then?
I didn't start writing till about maybe year 2, because we just had such good writers. We had people we got from university, and we got some people that contacted us that, George Kay, who was in Critic magazine in Dunedin, that's a student paper, and Roy Colbert from Dunedin, who had written for Hot Licks. He got in touch, and he was into the Dunedin scene, of course. So, and a couple of others, Duncan Campbell and Ken Williams, were both newsroom. They were newsroom type journalists, and they were very good at. They were the sort of people who could, go to a show that finished at 10 o'clock at Logan Campbell Centre.
Yeah.
And then I could drive around and get out of their letterbox at 11 o'clock, a finished review.
Wow, that's pretty.
And they would have gone to bed.
Because they were trained writers, right?
Yeah,
they knew all that stuff, how to,
They can turn it out. And once Duncan, who became a legendary reggae fan, once he did Tom Petty, and it was quite a lengthy review, but it was nearly all commas. It's like, I think he was stoned, he'd failing to put a full stop in and start again.
Who was it? Duncan
Campbell.
Is he still around?
No, he died very prematurely after a fall.
Right. Oh, that's sad.
He wouldn't have even been 60, I don't think. I think he would be in his 50s.
So what year did Rip It Up start?
1977, which is sort of when...
right.
Like, we didn't know punk was going to take over, but we knew it existed, but we weren't trying to be a punk magazine. We were trying to be sort of back to basics and get away from art rock and classical rock, and just go for the spirit of rock and roll of the Little Richards and the Rolling Stones and
that sort of thing.
That stuff.
So Rip It Up. How long did it go for?
Well, it went till 2013, but I ceased to be involved in 1998 as an editor.
Right.
But I did contribute to it off and on right up to 2013, usually just with one specialist column, or I used to like reviewing the reissues. I wasn't really involved in what was good or bad about the current scene, because I just thought I was too old for that.
So when did you become the editor?
It was a couple of years in. I've never worked out the date. I took over the editing because I was the full-time staff member, and Alistair was getting seriously into his law degree. Right. And then I did it for a few years as editor, and then we started up a pop magazine called Shake, and I got Chris Birkin to edit Rip It Up while I did Shake, and he did a couple of years, and then it went back to me as editor until 1998.
Oh, okay. And then after 1998...
It sold to another company. Now,
was it free right up to that point still?
No, it had gone on the newsstands with a price from 1994 to 1998, and we'd.
And how much was it?
Oh, initially it was $2, and I don't think we went as. Oh, we would have gone up to $3, I think, at some point. But
I thought it was $1. I remember when it started becoming, you had to pay for it.
No, well, I'm sure we're at least $2 when we charge for it. The grunge years, though, you know, that was the grunge years, like our second issue.
The grunge years?
Grunge music.
Oh, you mean when grunge came out?
Yeah, that's why there was interest in the magazine. And, you know, young guys were starting bands and stuff.
Right.
Like, grunge was very big for the rock bands.
Was it 80s grunge?
No, 90s really.
Oh shit, I'm gone too far back. Yeah.
Yeah, and the second,
Nirvana and all that, right?
Yeah, and the second issue we had to sell on the newsstands. Kurt Cobain died, so that was sort of convenient if you're trying to sell magazines.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So, so for you back then, was that a full-time job?
Yeah, it would have been full-time. I don't know if I was getting paid. I mean, I was hardly getting paid probably for the first 10 years or so, you know.
So did you have other income? How did you pay your rent?
Well, what was rent in those days was
disclosures here.
Well, rent was $25 in those days.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was relatively easy to pay.
Okay. Well, that's cool. So then, when you finally got out of Rip It Up, what year was that? When you
1998.
And then
that's when I ceased to be the editor. Yeah.
And what did you do then?
I was mainly, what was I doing? I was doing a bit of freelance writing, and I was selling off my poster collection, particularly the punk era, for exorbitant prices, so I could buy an air ticket to the USA or something like that. Oh no, I know what I was doing. I was running Wildside Records with She Had and Head Like a Hole and all that. Yeah, because while I still had the magazine, I'd started Southside with Moana and the Moa Hunters.
Right.
Posse, MCO.
That's quite diverse. Moana, then you go to She Had.
Yeah, well, with dance or things like Moana and the Moa Hunters, we depended on producers, and as soon as we had some success, producers wanted to basically charge us too much. So at some point, Gerald Dwyer said to me, do you want a Head Like a Hole album? This has been written down a lot, what it was.
Because he managed them,
He said, do you want a Head Like a Hole album for, it was either 3,000 or 4,000, something like that. And I said yes, because that's what's costing me for one dance track. So so I basically use, you know, Wildside to help bail out the Southside thing, and we just let the Southside artists go because...
Oh, so one label was Southside and one was Wildside?
Wildside, yeah. So I just let the Southside artists go because I just couldn't afford to pay the producers the money they wanted.
Right.
So some of them went off and just sort of started their own labels or were involved in Deep Groove starting up. But the dance music thing was something to really get away from, in the sense that selling CDs was where the money was then, and we'd had, you know, a #1 hit with Nairi with Love for 6 weeks, #1, and the album didn't sell much more than a couple of thousand. And
was that a cover of the original song?
Yeah, To Sue, yeah.
Right.
And we had more sales success with Moana's first album, Tahi.
Yeah.
I know we went at least platinum, over 15,000. But her husband and a few others started up sort of a Maori-owned label or part.
Was that Tangata?
Tangata,
Yeah.
And sort of it.
Yeah, I knew Neil, who was part of that. Neil Cruikshank.
Yeah, so the idea, you know, it seemed, I just let them go because that's where they wanted to go.
Okay, so it's interesting. So you did a bit of freelancing, and then what happened from there? When did you start? What came next? Was it the DJing or?
Oh no, it was the DJing didn't come along till about 2004.
Oh.
I mean, Wildside kept me busy up until about 2004. And,
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because
So
I was involved in the, Wildside had about the first 4 She Had albums. I think the 4th one was through General Electric, though, was financed by Warner Music, and it was through Warner Music, so I became a bit of a spare wheel. I wasn't.
okay.
I was becoming less and less important, and
Yeah, yeah. So Wildside Records. So the artist you had, She Had. Who else did you have on that? Head Like a Hole? No.
Slim
Slim
out of Christchurch.
Yeah.
Pumpkinhead out of Christchurch. Bilge Festival out of Wellington. Pace Load near the end, and D Super out of Wellington, and we had our Auckland band Rubicon.
Oh,
and
yeah, Rubicon.
Also near the end we had Stylus. We did a couple of albums, did quite well with the first one.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few artists on the Wildside label. I've probably forgotten some.
So Wildside was just you, or you had other?
Dead Flowers and Hallelujah Picasso's were 2 of the other ones.
Yes, I know those two.
Quite.
But were you Wildside on your own, or did you have a partner? Or?
Oh no, I was Wildside on my own, and I was distributed firstly by Festival, then BMG, then some went to Warner's, and Rubicon we ended up with Universal, and we put some acts through Global Roots too.
Yeah.
Because we had the punk band Muckhole, that we did one album that was quite successful.
Hadn't heard of them.
It was through their album Kuza, their debut. Was a very good album.
Are they from Auckland?
Yeah.
How do you spell it?
Punks.
Muckhole.
Muckhole.
What's the spelling?
Muckhole.
Oh, no, I haven't heard of them. That's interesting.
Check them out. They were sort of emo or pop punk or whatever.
Emo pop punk. Interesting. Okay, so that, as you say, that brought you through to up to when
about
you started
2004, 2005, and since then I've done a lot of bars or restaurant DJing.
And that's paid work, I assume.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Right, and various bars all around Auckland mostly.
Yeah, all Auckland. Yeah.
Right, and so you've been doing that for what, 20 years or so?
Yeah, it's hard to say that.
Wow.
Tell you, it is 20 years.
And you're still doing it now? Aside from BFM, do you still do it in other places?
Well, well, I do. I do both Hallertau restaurants in Auckland, Clevedon, and Riverhead. I do them once a month. Love that. I usually do Dr. Rudy's in the Viaduct once a month on a Friday night.
Yeah.
And I'm just for the first time doing Mangawai Sports Bar. The bunker. I'm doing that Sunday week. But there's the odd thing I think I'm adding this year, and I've always enjoyed the malt bar in Grey Lynn, but I'm not booked so far this year. So.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And so I guess you, like me, we're retired as such, so that this is just kind of extra things, your passions that you still do.
Yeah, being on the pension's the best pay I've had all my life. So.
There you go. One good thing that Winston, I'm getting political here, but you got to give him credit for bringing that in, Winston, for that one.
Well, he didn't bring the pension, and he just brought the gold card.
The gold card, which, I guess, well, did that come out before the pension? Later.
Yeah, the gold card came out quite recently, and I think the pension was around the time of the First or Second World War.
Oh, okay.
I think
I'll have to restate that. I can't. Thanks for the gold card.
It was Labour government in the 30s or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So, and of course, you do a lot of photography. You started it with Rip It Up, and you've continued to do it. And you're still doing it now, photography?
Yeah. I sort of like, in our lives we find out creative identities. And for years my identity was as a photographer. It sort of defined me as a person. And
oh, you mean more so than as a music writer?
definitely. You know, like at the point where we were starting Rip It Up, I was so poor as a writer compared with other people.
Yeah.
And other people had to encourage me to write. And, you know, if you're having trouble with writing, the best thing is just to try and write like you're sending a letter to your best friend. And
right.
And if you can just get the flow of it. I don't have the flow of it now, really, but I've got a story I'm about 4 years late delivering. And
you've never done any like writers courses or anything?
No.
Self-taught, yeah. Yeah.
But the people who encouraged me, the person who encouraged me most was a writer, Ken Williams. He would say, you know, you're better than, you know, half the people in the Auckland Star newsroom. Yeah.
Right, so you must have had a good feel for it, even if you didn't have the technical expertise as such. You know, because you had
maybe,
the passion for the music,
I'm
right?
still, you know, like, people who know their grammar and everything well are a bit horrified by me at times, and my ability to move through every tense in one sentence.
Yeah, I get that a bit too. Some of the things I do.
I have to correct my Facebook posts that are very interesting, usually about 5 times to get everything in the same tense.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So with your photography, I'm aware of your ones on cars exhibition and your recent one, Gender 70s.
Yeah.
They're old photos, but have you exhibited them before, or
Yeah.
as that sort of thing?
Yeah, there were 2 exhibitions in a gallery called Snaps in the mid-70s, which were the 2 V8 car ones.
Right.
And then I never did a music one until about 2017.
Oh, really?
Because I think, obviously I was busy on Rip It Up, but the best of the V8 cars, anyway, they went missing for a while until 2014. I worked out which friend had borrowed them for a book that never happened, and he had them safe and in good condition. So then I could start doing a flash cars exhibition because my greatest hits were missing, you know.
Oh, right.
The negatives for my best shots were missing, or key shots.
And even though I guess, like, you haven't had many music only photo exhibitions.
No, only the one that it did Sydney, Auckland, Wellington. Yeah. That's the.
Was that the last one you did?
The last music one, yeah.
Yeah. What was that called?
You saw it.
I saw it.
We had a strange name because it was just after COVID, and I think we called it The Show Must Go On.
So obviously, look, from what I remember, a lot of those were black and white.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were older photos, right? So were they ones you got from your days with Rip It Up that you'd taken
in
back
a way,
then?
but that might have. The black and whites were older, but what was distinctive about that exhibition was I think I added 10 colour photos.
Yeah.
So they were varied. They could have been right up to quite recently. I can't quite remember, but I know some were Big Day Out.
Yeah.
And was there one? She had one maybe. There was Terry Moana.
Yeah.
Terry Moana Rapley from Moana and the Moa Hunters. So no, there were definitely 10 colour ones that weren't framed.
That's cool. And so now, where are you at with your creative things that you like to do? Are you doing? Is it mainly just the DJing, or are you still doing photography?
Well, the photography thing that I've been obsessed by is like I'm a bit obsessed by Las Vegas and California and Americana, and to some extent the V8s are all about Americana, if you know what I mean.
Oh, okay.
But they're Americana in Auckland.
You mean Americana as from like a music Americana?
No, I mean
a general Americana term. See, I only really associate the term with what they call Americana music.
Yeah, I probably associate it with mid-century modern houses and
okay. See, I didn't know about
cars.
that. Wow, I'm learning. I'm learning stuff here from this guy.
But America, I may be misusing it even, but it's just a general American culture,
right? So just like Kiwiana, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just
I didn't even thought of it like that. It seems so obvious now.
There's all sorts of Americana, like a thing called Googie architecture, and just the look of the American takeaway shops, fast food shops, and particularly the early ones that almost don't exist now. But so I've taken a lot of photos in America, and I've never been able to sort of narrow down what I've done to being a single focus for an exhibition. So I've got it sorted what I want to do, but I so want to go back there this year, 2025. Yet I so don't want to do anything to support Trump, So. But then I consider California and New York to be just different countries, and
they are,
and Seattle a different country, and
they're their own thing, aren't they? People often say that about New York. It's like not like the rest of America, even though Trump hangs out there. But it's like another planet.
Miami now.
Yeah, but I mean, I remember hearing the term before I ever went there. New York is like its own planet. People used to say to me, and I didn't really get it till I went there, but it is. It's incredible.
Yeah, and traditionally, in a very good way, they've created a good culture.
Yeah.
And they're very up themselves about it, in some sense. But it's a fabulous city, and I've only been there once lately. I'm actually.
I've only been there once. Yeah.
Yeah,
but a while ago.
Yeah, I'm more obsessed at the moment with sort of small desert towns in California and Nevada, and renting cars while I can still, while my marble count is big enough to have a functioning brain, driving on the wrong side of the road. I'm great in the countryside and the deserts, and highways where there's 2 lanes separate going different ways. I'm not the world's most confident driver in the big cities like San Fran or LA.
Yeah. So now you're doing your DJing. That's still pretty regular, and you're still passionate about the photography, right?
Oh yeah. It's still like I've come full circle where I sort of define myself as a photographer almost, but I'm a music fan, and I enjoy music, and all my music is really focused on what's on vinyl that I can play next week, Right. I'm not interested in hearing anybody's digital music that...
Right, so when you're DJing, it's all vinyl?
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
That's interesting.
And the other weird thing is I quite like cover versions where, there's a Latin band doing an instrumental of Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Oh, and right.
People tend to enjoy them. I'm sure some people are offended.
Yeah.
But I'm into a lot of that, and I've been leaving a venue and some teenager comes from the kitchen running after me saying, "Why do you play so many cover versions?" Like, not in a disparaging way, but he's sort of thinking, why does this man play so many non-original versions of the songs, and I probably just said, I'm having fun, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. I like it. I mean, even Herbie Hancock, he did a cover of a Nirvana song. I can't remember which one it is. Maybe it was that one. The most unlikely person, right, to cover them. Yeah. But it's interesting. And what I find is too, often when people do a cover of a song, it may be a song you don't normally necessarily like, but you prefer that you like the cover version because it's different and totally rearranges it. I don't know. That's an aspect to it sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes, like an American soul band's redone Green Onions, and it
with vocals.
No.
Just the tune. Yeah.
And like it was actually at a Hot Rod event. Someone from a band playing the same day came up and said, "What is this? What version?"
Yeah.
And he thought it was Booker T and the MGs, but just a different flair on the Hammond or a better sound quality or whatever. So
yeah, I think
I use that.
I think Roy Buchanan did a version of Green Onions.
I'm sure there are a few.
Yeah, which is really interesting. If you're a Roy Buchanan fan, I am. Have you heard of it?
Yeah. No, he was around when I was editing Ripped Up. He toured here.
So
I may have even interviewed him. No, I think we would have. I photographed him. I think.
Yeah.
Like Ken Williams might have done the interview, but I buy a lot of at the moment. Vinyl LPs are so expensive. I often buy re-edits of old songs from Juno Records in the UK, and I play a lot of them on on my BFM podcast of Land of the Good Groove. But lately, so many people have been dying. I've just been, playing tributes to people who passed away.
Yeah, well, it's that time, and we're baby boomer era, so a lot of those people are dying, especially the older ones.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes. So, do you want to talk anything about, I don't know, the New Zealand music scene, or perhaps modern music?
Oh, I don't really know enough. I mean, because I only buy what's on vinyl, over the years I've had Lady Six and Fat Freddy's Drop and Lord Echo and stuff that comes out on vinyl. I will usually just buy, or Nathan Haynes has had some good stuff on vinyl.
That fits into those soul or jazzy, funky sort of thing.
I just those acts are the ones that have probably.
And so you do obviously the local stuff on vinyl. You'd buy it locally.
Yeah. I always like to support that. I don't really want don't want to get a freebie when it's so hard to
make a living,
make a buck out of
That's right.
music. But,
yeah.
But the only thing I'd say about local music is one of the reasons why I got out of Wildside in 2005 is that technology allows us to have such a glut of music out there.
Yeah.
And because there's so many thousands of people making music, sometimes, there's just a lot of stuff you just don't need to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, I always think of it as, that's true, but then it sort of seems like most things in life, you've got to go through all the shit to find the good stuff, if you know what I mean. Because in a way, it's, I hate to use this term, but it's a numbers game. If you only hear a certain amount of stuff, you won't be exposed to a lot. But by doing that, you have to often go through a lot of crap to find good stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
you find friends who have similar tastes or might recommend something. All of that sort of stuff.
What was good about the 60s and 70s is you had all these independent labels like Stax Records out of Memphis and High Records out of Memphis and Philadelphia International out of Philadelphia, and Atlantic Records doing soul, or Motown and their various labels and offshoots like Invictus. And if it was on the Invictus label, it would tell you this is worth listening to, because those
reputable.
Yeah, well, those labels had a sound and they had a standard, so you probably would want to listen. Now, some people would say, well, nowadays there's a Daptone label, and they certainly have a certain amount of quality. Sharon Jones and was it Daptones?
Daptones,
yeah. They were definitely fabulous live.
Oh, I've seen them a couple of times, and I got to meet Sharon and the guitarist and a few other in her band at WOMAD one year.
Yeah, well, I just don't think that I don't think that quality is necessarily sustained with the other acts on the label. And
Yeah.
I don't see the labels with an identity that the labels can help to curate what you're going to listen to. I mean, Flying Nun still does it in New Zealand. If you're a Flying Nun fan, you probably will like what they're doing now as you liked what they were doing in the 1980s and 90s.
Yeah. Mm. Right. Well, I don't know. Is there anything else you'd want to talk about, Murray?
No, I'm all good.
I think we've covered it. Well, thanks, Murray, for taking time out in your schedule to let me interview you.
I thought of something to say.
Yes.
I was thinking we should all make sure we've seen a complete unknown and cherish the days when musicians had a political or a protest or something to say. And wouldn't it be nice if we had some artists emerge internationally with something to say about the contemporary scene?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, and I back you on that film. I've seen it and I loved it. And I know there'll always be critics for whatever reason. People who get picky about little aspects of it. But I think it was very well done.
Well, it's still the mystery of how Bob Dylan wrote all those amazing songs. He doesn't know, and he doesn't want to be called a protest singer or political singer. He called himself at the time a contemporary singer.
Mm.
Well, if that's the word for it, we need some contemporary artists that have got something to say about now.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, Murray. Thanks for coming along.
Cool.
Goodbye, everybody. And I hope you enjoyed this interview, something different. And we will see you on the next video. Ka kite.
See y'all.